how you talk, how you act, how you behave. It should touch every single facet of your business, internally and externally. And just a little bit about why I fell in love with the power of brand. I started my career almost 20 years ago at the largest advertising agency in the world, McCann Erickson. And I worked across the whole marketing mix, from TV to press. But when I started, there was probably 4, maybe 5 channels. So it was pretty straightforward in that regard. But advertising is campaign-led, and it can often be executional. And what I love about branding is that it should be strategically grounded. It should represent your business, but it should also drive the business forward. And I'll come on later on and give you some solid examples of that with some clients that we've worked with over the years. But a brand is really top-down, bottom-up. So as an example, I get asked quite a lot actually from a number of different businesses, can you update our website, and whilst you're at it, just update the logo on the masthead? That doesn't work. A brand should be the first point and the last point. It should be the starting point of everything. And arguably, if you get the brand right, then everything else falls into place quite easily. If you don't get the brand right, then everything becomes silo-based, it becomes fragmented, and so any tweet, any piece of advertising, any collateral just gets watered down. And that's why I love branding. So branding is important because it defines you to generate awareness and to generate memorability. Consistency is really, really critical in branding. That doesn't mean that it can't be flexible, and in today's landscape, branding does have to be flexible. It has to work on an avatar on social media, it has to work on an outdoor 98 sheet, 96 sheet. It has to work on TV, in press, on lots of different channels, so it does need some flexibility. But that recognition of your brand and in the eyes of the customer, whether that's in a business-to-business context or a business-to-consumer context, that memorability needs to stay. And that's why it is so important to get that bit right. And people will always come to you for a better price, some value add, but they will stay for a branded experience, and that's why that bit's important. So a little bit of a visual demonstration. So can anyone tell me who this guy is? A clown, correct. Yes, he's a clown. He looks like a clown. The visual clues are there. He's bright, he's warm, he's probably quite funny. Perfect for clowning around. That's how he dressed, that's the perception of who that guy is. Oh, sorry. But what if I told you that this guy is actually called David, and he's one of the world's top lawyers, and he just happens to be dressed like a clown. But David dresses like this for work, so there's no worrying. And I guess that's just a really, really visual example of how branding works. So whilst branding is much more than just that cosmetic veneer, first impressions count. And first impressions can often define how you are perceived internally and externally. So in summary, you are what you're seen to be. We use this slide quite a bit, and we have done for a number of years, just because everybody knows who British Airways is and everybody knows who EasyJet is. So it's a really good example of how to demonstrate getting your brand right and then also getting your brand wrong. So British Airways at the top there, aspirational luxury airline, and EasyJet, affordable budget airline. Does anyone want to tell me or make a suggestion as to why British Airways looks aspirational on that slide, in that logo? Typeface, yeah, nice. Serif typeface, quite classic, quite elegant. Anything else? The colour, yeah. Blue's quite corporate, quite sensible. It used to be very associated with banking. That, of course, has all changed. It is, yeah. It's got that regalness about it for sure. Red is also seen as the colour of success. It's also can mean sale, but red is a colour of success, and it also premiumises your impression as well to an audience. What about EasyJet? Why do you think EasyJet looks purposefully affordable and budget?
Well, bold colours, typeface.
Yeah, the typeface is much softer, it's bouncy, the colour is much more vibrant, it's more playful. So the point of this slide is that it's levels of appropriateness. So what I'm going to show you now is how they could potentially get it wrong. But just because somebody looks budget doesn't mean they skimp on their brand from a spend point of view. And you might be interested to know that EasyJet spend over £50 million a year purposefully looking budget. So just because you look budget doesn't mean you've done things cheaply. But what if they got it wrong? Still budget? No. Still aspirational? Definitely not. And that's really how branding works. It's about levels of appropriate. It's about representing who you are, what you offer as a product or a service, and it's about engaging with your audience in the right way and understanding what they're looking for. And so good branding is how you want to be perceived, your intended audience, the places it will be seen, and the challenges ahead. And as you can see with the EasyJet and British Airways example, it's about levels of appropriateness in the eyes of the customer or the consumer. So branding is so much more than just a logo. I know those two examples were specifically logos, but those brands extend far beyond that, from imagery through to typography and lots of other different facets. So when we talk about branding to our clients, we often talk about adding real value. So I'm just going to talk through a client that we work with. They're a tech company, business to business, called Lima. And when we started talking to them about 18 months ago, they were very much focused on the product that they deliver to their customers. So they provide internet infrastructure. So anything to do with cloud, technology, to help a business operate efficiently and to help a business grow. The trouble was that they did a whole host of work before they got to the bit where they implemented the kit, where they understood the business, they understood the nuances, they understood the operation, the commercial need. And when I went into the business and interrogated that process and that customer journey, they were giving that little bit at the front, which was quite significant, away for free. So we actually turned their business and their selling model into something completely different. And when we interrogated the brand, the business owner couldn't tell us what Lima stood for, which is L-I-M-A. So what we did is a little bit of post-rationalisation, and we created a sales funnel for them. So the L then stood for learn, the I for implement, the M for manage, and the A for assess. And what that did is it created a circular system for the sales team to give the insight and the important strategic bit, to move them down the sales funnel, then 12 months later assess where that business was up to, and then put them back into the cycle. So that's my point about good branding. You should always add value and try to create commercial opportunities.